Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming. So as you would have heard, there's some amazing sort of changes afoot in our world. 2030 is coming, and the session you've joined today is about the on-ramp to that. It's about how do we get to that point with more change than we've seen in all of human history. And today, the very people who will be a part of that, who will bring it in Australia to one end or another, to a great leadership position in this nation, or maybe we fall behind. This is all happening now with the students who are studying, the very young students who are studying, the students of 15 years of age who will be joining into that workforce. So today's really about covering that and helping you connect the importance of all of us. And just a quick question, who is employed by a company or is an employer or also works in a technology-based role? Anyone? There's a few people, pretty much everyone. Okay, great. So the relevance of you being here is because every nation around the world needs to engage with you around how education needs to become more relevant. So that's sort of what we're doing today. Next slide. Who are we? So there's my name up there, and there's Matthias's name. So I'm the education consultant for South Pacific for HP, and a few things about me. So I'm passionate about education. I have it near and dear to my heart. Outside of work, I volunteer in the United Nations Association for Global Schools Program. I'm on the advisory committee for curriculum, for technology curriculum for ACARA. So that's basically the organisation that helps shape what we should be teaching kids and the curriculum that teachers have to deliver and how we measure that. And I'm a bit of a crazy individual because I can't get enough about how education can transform the lives of people and nations. And you know, right now there's so many examples of how it goes wrong. We've got South Sudan, and they're suffering an awful famine at the moment, and some people might speculate as a result of many wars that they've had. But you know, one really critical fact for me is they have the lowest rate of female education in the world. Less than 1% of all girls and women have access to education in South Sudan. So my heart goes out to them because it's almost impossible for them to change that situation, let alone leap forward into the 2030 picture that we saw, which actually that continent is a huge part of. Africa is predicted to be a huge part of that. So that's why it's important to me. That's me. So I'm in this Education Global vertical organisation that HP has created since it split in 2015. Lots changed. And essentially that's a merger of the decades of work that HP has done in philanthropy and education, and the intelligence that we've gathered and the partnerships we have with UNESCO and the World Bank and a whole bunch of other organisations. And it's been merged with our $3 billion innovation labs arm. And the reason for that is because there is a need to create the future before it happens in education. And as you'll hear, there's some things we need to change. Matthias is in our global team as a consultant, and Matthias is a passionate person like myself in education. We throw Matthias into the jungles of various countries and put him in harm's way with all kinds of tropical diseases and bites and, you know, rebel insurgents. Matthias has been through how many countries now in terms of government?
I lost count. I've been every continent except Antarctica.
Yeah. I'm sure that when
not going there.
Yeah, well he can't tolerate cold that well, but he's been in Melbourne for a while now, so he seems to be okay. But Matthias actually is a global consultant for HP. Some of the things that we're doing, which is a little bit unheard of, is for the last few years, we've actually been doing projects with entire governments, entire nations, to forensically analyse their learning education system, learning, social and economic. So Matthias has been at the forefront of that, going into the jungles of Peru, and he's very passionate. So we're delighted to have him here, and I'm going to throw to him so that he can tell you all about what we're doing to bring the future forward through education.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. And yes, that is my name. I know. It looks weird. It is. Yeah, if you want to know why, please let me know. And I'll give my dad's cell phone number. It's payback time. Call him now. It would be amazing. Yeah, please do. More than once. And I've been 30 years at HP. June is going to be 30 years. I started my career in Brazil. Yes, I'm Brazilian. English is not my language. I have to learn that later on. So I was listening to Todd and say, well, how can you retrain your brain? I'm being kind of, luckily enough, doing some of those stuff. I'm not going to be jumping or escalating, tying myself to chains in pools, because that's a little bit crazy, right? So yeah, we can practice, but not kind of putting your life at risk. So, but I admire that so much. Let me bring one thing. Let's see if you guys are really paying attention on everything, right? What are the two words that describe the kind of a couple of days that we're spending with us here today? What's being kind of the theme that everybody's bringing to the table? Innovation is one. Very good. Change, that's it, right? Change and innovation. And we'll be hearing constantly on it, right? What Todd has said, what Andrew has said, what Poet, everybody's going change and innovation, change and innovation. Okay, now let's jump to change and innovation to education. Whew, that's going to be an interesting session, right? Okay, so brace yourselves and get ready for it, okay? So let's start this exercise. Pretending now, because it's change and innovation, let's look ahead a little bit, right? Let's go 13 years from now. And I'll be making two questions. First, have we 13 years ago developed the right set of skills on the kids that are going to the education system to prepare them for 2030? No. Yeah, I know the answer, right? It's not even close, right? And the question is, what? This is the future of Australia. This is the future of the world. That's today inside a classroom. And are we looking forward or backwards? Sometimes backwards is actually a plus.
Just ask Malcolm Turnbull, who's just made a university more expensive. That's what they're talking about.
Well, depends, right? I've been collaborating with some universities on the different countries. In order to make it cheaper, you partner with your end customer. And instead of them spending money later on to develop those skills into the professionals, why they don't invest, the cost is actually less early on. I'll put you an example. In Spain, UTAD, which develops the competition from DreamWorks in Europe, where the hell are you going to find animators? Thus reducing your cost of operation and train them when they are ready to get to the marketplace. They will be ready to work for you. So the company there built up a university. And the way they teach the kids is the same way they work. By year 2, 100% of the students already have a job. Not 10%, not 20, 100% of them. The data in Spain is that 50% of the youth that lives in the university do not have a job. Not because they're bad, because the set of skills that they develop, it's not the one that the marketplace is demanding. Sounds ridiculous, right? But we're going to be showing some of your numbers. You're going to get scared about it. Right? So again, have we really focused on those skills? Well, you see what I'm going with this, right? The answer is no. Okay, so let's get back to 17. And let's see, okay, now that we are back here, oh my goodness, we need to start doing something now, right? Are you on board with this? Okay. I'm not going to be talking about megatrends because everybody's been talking about them, so hopefully you'll remember. I'm not going to be assessing this, but hopefully you'll remember that. Visualize. But if you take a look at the classrooms, go to your community, go to your school. I'm going to challenge you. Go back and visit your school if it's nearby. And mine's a few miles away from here. But I did that with my kids and my classroom. It's actually exactly the same. Because I was kind of a crazy on it, I went to the classroom that I was, and I got to the desk and turned around and actually find my signature on the bottom. But yeah, that was crazy. So again, the things are changing, right? The employers, the environment's completely changing. Right? You can hear about millennials. We're not talking about millennials. We're talking about the next generation of it. Where they're going to be. So my dad, my grandpa, have just one job, and that was it. Right? I'm 30 years with HP. Inside HP, I already have like 17 careers within it. And that's the beauty of it, that I had the opportunity to really change my jobs working for the same company, right? So it's actually an extremely rewarding experience because you challenge yourself all the time. But again, this is what's happening today. Second, the education system is actually developed for industrial revolution. How do we train a workforce to perform a task in a period of time? News, that's being replaced by robots. It's obsolete. But that's every single school that I have visited. Doesn't matter where I go. It's exactly the same format. The dynamics is the same. The way we organize it, which is kind of a sad once you kind of do a step back and look at it, we organize education systems based on what? That's an easy question. What time do you start at school?
9 o'clock.
What age did you start?
5.
5, 6?
Yeah.
You?
Yeah, 6. 5.
Brilliant idea, right? We assume that globally, all 6 years old are freaking identical. By the way, boys and girls are very similar to each other. Here's a girl and a boy at home, a daughter and a son. They're exactly like it, right? What? The schools are done for that. So how do we scale that? Well, we develop a system which some of them will fit, some of them will not. Most likely, most of them will not. And how do we assess that? The ones that actually fit to the system are the really good ones. The other ones out there, they have issues. Sounds crazy, right? Well, this is the schools around you all the time, right? So again, it's not by function based, it's project based. It's not top-down organization. So even at HP, we kind of network all the time. I work globally. I don't even have a time zone anymore. I don't have a clue. When I travel so much, sometimes I say, let me eat when I'm hungry. No, it doesn't work anymore, right? Because I might be presenting it, but I should be sleeping now. It doesn't work like that anymore. And again, that 40-hour, who really works 40 hours, 9 to 5? This is not a manufacturing plant. We are connected all the time. We are interfacing all the time. We are doing stuff all the time. The kids too, right? Do you have sons and daughters? Yeah, they have a computer console at home. Have you seen them, the way they interact on it? They are globally connected. And then they go to school. And what happened? Have you seen any of your sons and daughters go and work on a project globally on it? Like we are doing in Australia on the Learning Studios, to work on a global development goal. Are they doing this in school today? Have they worked on a project to learn math and go and talk to kids in, I don't know, the MIT, connect to the astronauts on the space station and say, hey, by the way, why should I learn this one? How can I use this for? Are they doing this today? Probably they do when they're out of school, right? But at school, they don't. How difficult is that? Well, it's a click away. Seriously. And we're not doing it. And then you expect kids from Brazil, they need to learn 3 or 4 languages to go now and know how to behave properly in Australia, or in Germany, or in Abu Dhabi. There's no more frontiers, right? We are all connected. Just look at your kid's profile. Well, not Facebook because that's for old dudes, right? But look at Instagram, Snapchat, or whatever the things they're using now, right? Look at their networks. You're going to get scared. But take a look at it. Right? So again, in order to prepare them for the future, we need to change what we teach, because the skill sets that we're developing today are completely useless. Right? No, because memorization of cognitive thought is something that's still important. And again, technology is making us dumber. Yeah, if you don't use it correctly, right? And the other thing is that, yeah, not everything that is on the internet is the right answer for it, right? So how do we develop that set of skills for them to go and look and understand what that can be applied, what cannot be applied? So what we're teaching is extremely important. The way we taught, the way we transferred knowledge needs to change tremendously as well, right? We think that all 6 years olds go to a place and, yeah, we go and throw stuff at them, assuming that they will all get it. No, they're all different. We need to learn how to adapt. And the other thing is that human capital development doesn't only happen in school. That's called teaching and learning. It happens everywhere. How do we branch out and use everywhere and every time to be my human capital development, and sometimes even use the kids as the agent for transformation? Some of the countries, parents don't know how to read. How can we bring the kids to help them develop skills that they do not have today, thus helping them improve socially and economically? You see, the challenge is a little bit bigger, right? And for that, some things are happening today in education for us to aim to 2030. What are those things?
Yeah, sure. So some of these, if you're across education, you'll hear these sorts of words mentioned in reference to how teachers and students are interacting and how schools are trying to tackle some of those issues that we see in the workplace. So the 3D and Maker movement, which isn't just for kids, actually, it's for adults as well. It's about immersing us in that project-based learning. And certainly there's usually some smattering of 3D printing or some other technologies, but it's really just to engage us in the concept that we can build and create from ideas solutions to problems. Blended learning is actually a really interesting one because it sort of talks about, we talk about office of the future, and you've seen that. We talk about hypermobility and all that sort of stuff. And it's really to say, if the human brain, and this is some of the research that we've now got about how we learn, it's not just, I'm a visual learner and I'm an auditory learner or something like that. What they've learned about the human brain and how we learn is it's more like a rock concert or an orchestra than it is kind of a siloed thing that you do. Certainly that might be where you gravitate in a certain time, in a certain way. So blended learning is this notion that you create spaces, opportunities and times where the learner determines where they're best going to learn something, what is the best time for them to do that learning, and how they're going to learn that. And that kind of isn't a new thing, is it? I mean, it is for the teachers and the community of educators. They think it's like the latest thing since sliced bread. We've been welcomed to a few decades ago in our workplace, right?
Let me put an example of this. So about 3 years ago, I took the liberty of bringing one of these things. If you haven't seen it before or have not played with it, I strongly advise you to kind of take a crack at it. I bought 2 of those to Ecuador, in the middle of the jungle, a city called Yachay. Don't try to travel with these machines to a third world country. It's not fun, especially when nobody knows really what it is. So you go through customs. Yeah, it's not fun. But I took 2 of these to the middle of the jungle and connect them. I had the privilege of meeting some girls between 11 and 13 years old. They came to the HP booth at that time and said, okay, let me see your notebooks, let me see. They said, okay, stop. Okay. And they look at this, what is that? It's okay, stop. Don't worry about what it is. And I told them, 11, 12, and 13-year-olds, 7-year-olds, right? And said, okay, what if I challenge you that we can use that to write a book? I'm in the middle of freaking nowhere in Ecuador, for those that have never seen a computer, especially something like this, ever. Guess what I heard from one of them? You're nuts. That's a simple translation. In Spanish, sound a little bit more harsh. Yeah, I'm being polite. It was an 11-year-old telling me this. What? Okay, don't worry about it. The beauty of doing the right thing and applying the knowledge that we do have to help them make the impossible possible, it's a very enlightening experience. So we took this thing and start showing them how they can actually build this story together. You saw the DreamWorks, right? How do we start with it? You start developing your characters, and then you put your backgrounds into it. You start drawing on it. So we start playing around with digital assets. But we're in Ecuador. They want to build their story. And we told them, okay, go out and bring stuff from Ecuador. Whatever you freaking find on it. Sand, rocks, bugs, and they brought a bunch of stuff into it. And now we're integrating all that content. And then they are writing their story. And we're producing the pages. And they were freaking elbowing me out. It's okay, sorry, we don't need you anymore. Get the hell out of here. We got it. 30 minutes later, 7 girls went out of there with their book that they wrote, produced, and now they believe that nothing is impossible. Remember what Kathy says yesterday? She's been with DreamWorks for quite some time. And it's kind of, for me, it's enlightening to see that we still have people like this in the industry that get goosebumps every single time she sees that. I'm going to challenge you. Let's bring goosebumps to every single classroom. Every time, everywhere. We can do it. Okay?
Yeah,
Let's get it done.
So that's so that's like a blended moment, when
it's a combination of this.
It's like a blended moment. The kids went, you know what? This is the right place and the right time now that I believe I can do something that's an incredible machine. I don't know what it is, but now I sort of do. And they discovered that might be a place and a time and a way that they can do something project-based. So, and you would have seen on the slide before, as people now working in the industry, and you mentioned you guys are in technology and things like that, I mean, it's true to say that we have authority and autonomy over how we get the job done, right? So, yeah, blended learning is creating that environment in school, and it's not just the furniture, right? Just as it isn't in our workplace of the future. Personalised learning is that notion that human beings at a different time and place have different ways of not just learning and consuming the information and turning that into competency, which is the thing we really value, but also when we express that knowledge, we may not find the best way of expression to be a piece of paper. Because in our work, we have opportunity to do it in different ways. We can articulate our competency, if you're Matthias and myself, probably talking about it. But what about if you are really great in terms of building a collaborative project? Can you imagine students getting together and expressing in a test of their competency in a group? Look what we know about this. Let me show you what we've done. And we're going to show you as a group, right? So we do this in work all the time. This is actually why we need this. And this is the future. So that's really key. Personalised learning is not just learning, but testing and actually being able to produce evidence. Social emotional learning. If you're collaborating with people, I mean, if you've got a social and emotional disconnect in your learning, it doesn't go down too well. I mean, we've all had examples of difficulty with interpersonal collaboration. But it certainly goes to cultural depths and things like that. We do this at our workplaces, don't we? We actually have education programs now embedded to make us better at that because, well, it's better for the bottom line. It's better for productivity. So schools are looking at that. Vocational, technical and modular learning is the concept that really if we want to be near and dear to the industries that are changing, and the STEM thing gets talked about a lot, right? We're in the STEM industry, right? We're sitting here and we are in that industry. But it changes so fast. It changes really, really fast. So I've just set my classroom up. I spent thousands of dollars. I thought I had the latest equipment. Oh my gosh, isn't this taught anymore? So it's actually the notion we need to embed. We need to embed industry, not just at the university stage, but at the early learning stage. There needs to be an ability to look at that. So it's not just TAFE, it's not just university courses which have got some sort of connection to industry. It's actually a deep consideration that's needed. So those are sort of the things and the trends that are happening.
And you heard Andrew talk yesterday, right? It's important for us to keep kind of moving the needle forward. And the best way for us to do it is kind of sharing with you guys where do we see in the industry coming on it. So when we talk to the top education countries in art. So these are the things they're looking for as well. So keep kind of your eye open for this kind of a trends happening in your community with your customers, with yourselves. And let's see if we can work together to build a solution for it, right? Transformation requires a lot of stuff behind it as well, right? So to make sure that we have smart schools on it that will be able to deliver that type of experience, to make sure we'll be able to measure that. How do we measure success in education? Anybody on education that kind of runs an education institution? Yep. How do you guys measure success? Tough question. Tell me.
They're all going to have different outcomes depending on the level
Sure.
that they're dealing with, from primary through
Okay.
to TAFE and university. So, but I mean, should there just be one end goal or not?
So who's most people probably been to school. When you're at school, what did you get? What did you get? How did they tell you? Grades, yeah.
It's a simple, very simple, right?
Yeah.
Right. You go, learn something, they assess, do a test. If you do good on a test, you're doing good. If you don't do good on a test, you're really awful. Doesn't matter if you're sick, who cares? If you did do better on the test, you were really horrible. Right? What? We're talking about human capital development. We're talking about 2030, not yesterday. So the things that we measure should be a little bit different, right? And I'm going to put something in front of you that we are taking the challenge for that, is that whatever investment that you make, what we call education for us is human capital development, we have a direct social and economic impact on the families, communities, and countries that we're touching. And we're taking the challenge to make that better, okay? So what we measure, it's extremely important. The other thing is that, okay, there's not kind of a limited amount of resources to get it done. So to make sure you get the best return on it. And keep in mind that yes, that will have a cost to it. For us, it's extremely important as well. Okay, and every single one of you will have a different need, a different bar for that, right? So we need to understand that there's not one size fits all in this equation, right? And of course, safety and privacy is something that's extremely important for us. You'll be seeing us talk about from Office of the Future to all the new products that we're developing to this one, and this is built into what we call Education Edition as well, okay? So we cannot do this by not really being mindful that we're really talking to young men and women, and we need to protect them as much as we can, right? So we don't stop there. So once we move from the kind of strategies and academic strategies we're trying to implement, so the way how we teach, we'll look at the infrastructure around that one. But now we need to set the north for it. We need to understand where we're going with it. And we take the time to understand what's the really kind of a global outcome. So what are the north that you're setting up as a country, as a community, as a family, or whomever. So remember that whatever investment that you're making, we have an economic and a social impact directly associated with that. There are numbers, there are surveys globally that says for each year that a kid stays in school, the possibility of them making more money is between 6 to 10% more on income for every year that you stay in school. So countries that today are on high poverty levels, and they are mainly focused on Asia and Africa, how do we change that? We keep them in school. Sounds ridiculous. We just keep them in school. Why don't we try that, right? You seeing what's happening in Syria today? Where are they going? North or south? Why they're not going south? You look at the opportunities on the north and the south, I'm not going south, it might be worse. I'm going over here, I'm trying to find something new. I need to find an opportunity. They are ready for it. It's on us to provide them with that opportunity. So we understand that. We know the challenges that are behind that one. And the beauty side of this house is that we are not talking about globally. Let's look at Australia. Dave, why don't you share with us a little bit of the metrics that we do have for your country?
Yeah, so I suppose quite topical. So we've seen in the news recently a lot of this data, it's being trotted out. So what does it really mean? I guess it means once you've got all the students in school, which we have been doing, in fact, students now are going to school earlier, staying in school longer than they have previously. We've also spent billions of dollars on technology. We thought, well, hey, let's put technology into schools. So we've spent billions. So we've put them in school longer. We've given them billions in technology. We've invested in the schools. But the issue is that our PISA scores are declining since 2000. So, that benchmark on which we sort of look at the practical understanding of basic education, we're doing poorer, right? So something's sort of wrong. And then we look at some of the other rates. So look, STEM growth versus other jobs. Yeah, it's 1.5 at the moment. Can you imagine how huge the acceleration is going into the next 15 years? It's already ramping up in many countries. So there's a gap. We've got 165,000 positions unfilled and roughly 800,000, give or take, depending on the reporting and which side of government you're on, in terms of the unemployment figures. And the interesting piece is that there are a number of STEM employers who simply can't find skilled workers, and for reasons we touched on before, we kind of know why. And then the really tragic part is that presently we're sort of staring down the barrel of about 44 billion in debt for student loans for HECS debt. That means our graduates, who 41.7% since 2008 ongoing, only 41.7% of them are getting jobs after they graduate their degree. And it's not surprising we've got that debt, and the debt will grow to, they project, 185 billion in 2025, 5 years before we reach 2030. So what that tells us is it's not just about K-12, it also is about the connection of everything together to prepare people. And you've got organisations like Google, ourselves, and many others who need accelerated change. We're sitting right on the apex, the rarefied air of Mount Everest, slowly dying and hoping that we don't. And we've got to innovate, otherwise we disappear. We don't need graduates. We don't need people who've been working into their postgraduate degrees, into their doctorates, who have just, through that process, have become siloed solo workers, we're looking for all those skills we mentioned earlier, and we don't care whether you've got a piece of paper. We honestly don't. Tell us or show us what you've done. That's what we need. So these stats are not surprising.
I think just
yes.
on that, one of the problems we have, we go back to the year 12 thing, a mandate that you stay in year 12 because it gives an unbiased or a skewed look on what the actual unemployment figures are if they leave in year 9, year 10, because they can't get a job. And if you look at the rates in, say, Western Sydney, unemployed, it's a lot higher, or the Central Coast, it's a lot higher. Let's just keep them in school, so that helps reduce that. So the problem then goes on to is, the question what it is does everybody really want to go to university, or does everyone need to go to university?
And as a nation.
But
Right.
what you're saying is, we're actually saying is, if you're not going to university, maybe you're not worth much. And that's wrong.
Yeah,
That's wrong.
yeah. So you're quite
Ask
right.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah. So we've got, and
You know what we're suffering the most in Australia? Trades. We've got a lack of skilled workers from 17-year-olds of trades.
Yeah.
We're actually, in 15, 20 years, we're going to have virtually nothing, because all those guys that teach these young ones, they've retired.
Yeah, and look, and even when we look at how trades evolve and how the skills of the future, which are kind of like ancient skills, reapplied, so innovation is one of those. That's where we...
Yeah, I had this one. So one of the things that we kind of look into it, that there's still a lot of people focusing on the 19th century, not 21st century, right? So we still have countries focusing on, let's build manufacturing type of jobs facility on it, and actually can get really smart on it, and technology will actually replace 100% of them.
Just on that is, it's quite interesting, and I don't want to take anyone's time, but I've got this neighbour, George. Now I'm going to tell you, George is a really good guy, but he's useless. He cannot change a washer on a tap. You know why? Because he was never shown. And his boys are really good with iPads and getting on the wireless network, but they've got no chance of changing a washer on a tap. Herein lies the problem. So they can't pass down the knowledge because he didn't even know himself.
And look, I pick you up on that one point because we'll get through this, but I was at a school a little while ago, had all these teachers, 12 of them, and a principal, and the principal described his learning style and who he is and his admiration for children who jump both feet into technology. And he said, they just adopt it, and I question it. I have to question it. And I said, as a young man, as a boy, did you pull things apart? And he said, yeah, I did. And did you want to know how they worked? Yes, I did. And so I just see that comment that I don't really understand how they work, but my kids seem to jump into it. I said, I want to hire you. I don't want to hire any of your students because they're consumers who make stuff really easy to learn. So to your point, there are things that we value in skills.
Yeah.
Show me that you can do
100%.
something, right?
Yeah.
When we're employing people, we want those people to show us, hopefully once we've hired them, how good they are. We want to see the evidence. We want to see that represented. So do we assess that way? No. And so this is not surprising, and maybe it's a little soft. Maybe these numbers are a little soft because we're hiding them.
Absolutely.
But let's say we've got a starting point. But we have great opportunity. This country has still one of the best education systems in the world, right? So let's not forget that.
Yeah.
So I'll let you burn on, my friend.
Thanks. Can I use George in some of my presentation as well?
Go for it.
Do I have to change the name, or George is fine?
He's Greek.
We're going to get his home address and phone number.
Oh, okay, cool.
Another George.
You couldn't change the washer though.
Okay, stop profiling, please. Yeah. Okay, so again, because we're trying to get smarter in this, let me kind of put down the feet on the ground, right? And this is what we have been doing. So remember, 2030, set skills for the future, not for the past. But let's look at reality. So this is what we've been doing, right? This is a classroom about 100 years ago. A month and a half ago. Let me show it again. It's 100 years ago. A month and a half ago. What's the difference? Beautiful. Black and white and color, right? What? Well, yeah. This is kind of a medical school.
There's some girls.
Yeah, medical school. Yeah, so it's the only thing that I found in auditorium because it's kind of ridiculous, right? Because it's exactly Given the same format.
Except they're having problems with their computer, they're getting the class started, apparently.
Productivity in classrooms. So have you seen any of your classrooms in school when they deploy technology, how long the teacher takes to just get things started? They have 45 minutes, 15 minutes sometimes. They take about 12 to 15 minutes just to get going. Did you see after the future, the Office of the Future presentation? Just to get a meeting started, 12 minutes. According to Todd, we need to do that in 20. If you take more than half of the time just to get it started, we're really not that efficient. And that's every single classroom that deploys technology today. What if we can bring a solution that you would one click are ready to go? Do you know how much that costs you when you work on an education digital HP? 0. Okay, so we really think that the brightest thing that we can do as very smart people is to go and deploy technology into a classroom and everything will fix itself. We tried it. Didn't quite work. Sometimes it gets worse. Have you heard from the teachers? If I deploy technology, the kids will get too distracted. They will lose the focus on it. Yeah, I heard this from the principal from my kid in school. He said, we do not allow them to use technology in school. What? So when they go to school, they go back to the 19th century. As soon as they are out, back to the 21st. It's crazy. Right? Just because we don't know how to take full advantage of it, let them take advantage of it. And let's learn from them. Might be actually a good thing. Right? So I'm going to take one that's slightly more brilliant than I am. And this gentleman used to say that if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, we are actually crazy. Do you want to see the pictures again? Or I made my point. Is that fair enough? Visit your schools. It will be an enlightening experience for you guys. Okay? So now we're focusing on the future, right? These are the offices today. Are the classrooms of colleges ready for this? Do they replicate the same environment on it? The question is, why not? So, let's change everything. Let's start shuffling things around. Let's bring mobility to everywhere so we can go and deploy the right experience every time, everywhere. So let me make a suggestion. Let's stop focusing on the content, which again, according to Todd, memorization is still very important. But it's not the only skill they're going to be requiring. Don't teach the kids just to go and do good on an exam. Teach them how to learn, which will really it's important for you when you're at school, is because everything changes so fast. You need to learn how to adapt, how to be creative, how to communicate and collaborate, so you learn how to learn.
I have to go back to school to understand that sentence.
Which one?
Flexible.
Oh yeah, it's a bunch of words that we put together on it.
We put it there because some teachers come in and they like to see those words.
Yeah.
It's like an in-speak thing.
Yeah, and every single time someone throw a new one, we add another one to the list. Yeah. No, it's not. No.
Words.
It's a collection of ideas. Yeah. So again, how do we transform this? So you need to go and talk to the kids and ask them, what's really important for you? How can I help you? Talk to the teachers. Take the time and understand what's important for them. Talk to the leadership. Where do you want to go with it? And trying to put all of that together. Sometimes it's an amazing, amazing experience. So I'm going to challenge you. Let's unstandardize learning. Let's throw everything out. Let's bring goosebumps to every single classroom, every single day. Let's make sure the kids will have fun learning. Fun learning? Oh my goodness. Right? So yeah, and maybe education should look like this. So we don't stop there, right? It's not just changing what the classroom is all about. We have to change the individual. We have to start enabling the individual to kind of build whatever it's relevant for he or she. And again, it's going to be completely different. Their ideas are different. So we're making an effort within HP to how do we build those set of the skills so they can make their dream a reality, their Fantasia a reality. The same thing that we helped Disney 77 years ago to make Fantasia a reality, to make sure that everybody thinks Mickey is real. We can do that every day, every time. So we build an offer for you guys. So if you have your phones, please take them out. Take a picture of this. It's called HP Live. It's a free online content in which teachers globally can include entrepreneurship development skill set to their classrooms and teach kids how to build their businesses, how to do a product life cycle, how to do a marketing campaign, how to do a sales promotion, and so on and so forth. That costs you $0. So let's see what this girl has been doing with that type of knowledge. Ready? Did you take the picture?
Yeah.
Who wants 3 more seconds? Yeah. Got it? Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. So we partner with Miss Amet, we partner with DreamWorks to make whatever they think it's cool a reality. Let's do this all the time. So the question is, how do we do this? To help you put that together, we're kind of setting kind of a template in which we can work out of it, in which we understand what's really important to every single one of the stakeholders, from the student in the classroom, to the teachers that can enable those experiences, to the space that we're working. Don't call them classrooms, please change the name. We call them learning studios. Change the name for it, because it's really not a classroom. That's 100 years old. Get a name on it. Ask the kids to name that place, right? To the entire school's leadership needs to be behind it, because without them, this will not happen. And of course, the communities we serve, to make sure that we'll be able to address not only the academic or the learning outcomes, but the social and economic that goes together with that. For that, we are working in a few initiatives. One, how can we really transform education strategies and make sure that we execute that will maximize the outcomes on an individual level? How do we apply a very flexible learning and engaging space or studio to maximize the potential of every single kid that it's in there? Second, how do we go and start working on these skill sets that are going to be required for 2030, not 1930? And last but not least, how can we help you really define that plan? And for that, we kind of invented a process in which we embed ourselves. Could be on a countrywide level, which we have done in quite a few of them. This is Guatemala. And when we go and we talk to the stakeholders and ask them, do you like your school? Do you think you have computers in school? It's important. What you learned, it's important and relevant for you. The teachers, do you have enough resources to make sure that you can do whatever you want with the kids, to make sure that you adapt the learning to what it's important for them? And we talk from the kids in school to the country leaderships, to ministers, presidents, and everybody involved on it. So we can put all of those connections together, thus helping them make a sustainable long-term investment on human capital development to achieve learning, social, and economic outcomes. And that's the NET8 process. But we don't stop just by doing the template. Because again, okay, Matthias, but how do we really do it? So we went a step beyond that. Because we know there's not a one-size-fits-all thing. But again, everybody needs to touch and see something just to get inspired to it. We put something together, and we're deploying this in 15 countries, in 66 studios. And we define an idea which is called Learning Studios. So we package this kind of experience that can be very customizable, and everybody can do whatever they want with it, to make sure that that goosebump will be on the classroom. Why don't you talk about what we're doing on the studios?
Yeah, sure. So the Learning Studios addresses one really giant fundamental challenge. And that's that you heard earlier that governments all over the world sort of thought maybe to fix education we throw technology at it. And, well, it didn't fix it. And in fact, most, if not all OECD countries, when they were studied, pre-technology, post-technology, there was a net zero, absolutely net zero change in learning outcomes. So what that does is it sets against this immense change and innovation that we need an engine for, this problem around, is it risky to invest in technology? Well, now it is, for governments. So the project is really about setting up an environment, a living research environment that's fully independent. So HP and Microsoft, we grabbed Digital Promise Global, who are an NGO, to help craft the actual learning studio environment, the sort of technology was in it, so that it could be authentic. And then on top of that, we have a third-party researcher doing the analysis of what's happening. Now, of course, we embedded the way in which that learning studio would work to have the things that industry need today. Things like collaborative skills, let's get the kids doing a project. So that's what's really cool about it. And so we now have the initial research from that, which sort of demonstrates that this is actually the way to do it. So governments have evidence-based understanding to set policy around what sort of technology to put in, but more importantly, how do you use it to achieve an outcome? And so that's really exciting. So far at 66 schools, six of them are actually in Syrian refugee camps, and all of them, including those, are in lower socioeconomic school environments, a mixture of high school and primary school.
But Dave, we're in Australia, right?
Yeah.
So is that thing working here?
It's fantastic. We have 4 here in Australia, 1 in New Zealand, which I've been very pleased to be a part of. And these kids up here, it's a really interesting story. Their primary school, Mundaring, is in Western Australia, and those kids worked on the first project globally, United Nations Sustainability Goals. So these kids, these little primary school kids, and the goals are quite wordy actually, it's quite a challenge for them. They had to pick a goal. They had to understand the goal for themselves and decide what they would do about them. And what's great about that, when we learn best, when we're really engaged, we're invested. And so the goals actually did something very cool for all the students in all of the schools around the world. They came together, collaborated internationally, as we sort of expect to do in work, but they did that out of a real drive, an emotional drive. So you want to play the video. So I had to interview these kids. Okay, so what was way more fun for them, because they snuck in, I was with the principal, he told them all, okay, go out, go out. And the project had been running for about 3 or 4 months, so it's nothing new to them. They were working on a UN sustainability goal. So apparently that's more fun than recess at primary school age.
It was not for me.
No, but I guess the thing is the level of engagement, and here's the incredible story. One of the most incredible stories and there are many of them, out of Mundaring, was one where the principal actually rang me up and said, Dave, it's amazing. We have students reading and comprehending beyond their years, because those goals are actually really super wordy. We have students who demand to know what equality means. They demand to know what gender equality means. And this one group of boys, of 4 boys, 9 years old, and they said, what does this gender equality mean? What does gender mean? What does equality mean? Okay, there's girls and boys, and it means we're sort of treated equally. And they said, well, what do we need to fix? And the teacher said, well, in some countries, girls can't go to school like you. And they said, what do you mean? Well, they could get hurt if they're caught studying or going to primary school. And these boys were indignant. They were like, that's not right. I love coming to school. I mean, we obviously didn't talk to high school students, it'd be a different story, right? But they were indignant. And they decided that these women and girls in Afghanistan, they needed a shelter, a safe place that they can go and learn and have the same access to learning that these boys have. And so their project was around raising money in their school for a shelter for women and girls in Afghanistan so they could study. So of course they did design a 3D badge. They found an online place that makes badges, and they printed a prototype, and they ordered them and sold them in the school to raise money. So when you've got that employer, let's say we had Brad as one of the boys, and the employer's ringing me up for a reference, and I'm saying, let me tell you about Brad. This is the kind of guy he is. When he was 9, him and a group of his friends actually put together a project based on a UN sustainability goal that raised money for women and girls in Afghanistan so they had a safe place to go and study. And that's the kind of guy he is. Do I need to say any more? Do you want to have an interview with that guy? Of course you do. If that's the character and what he's done, then sure, I'm going to have an interview. So we need to build that into not just high school or university. We actually need to start earlier. And hey, you can.
Let me
Definitely
go a
start.
little bit further down on this one. So what's next? I'm going to make a call to action then, right? Because let's not just keep the conversation on a very nice note. Let's go to the next level. So I'm going to challenge you to challenge us. So together we can work to build a sustainable model, right? That can really produce meaningful outcomes for 2030, not 1930. That's a fair challenge? Okay? Please reach out. We're going to be more than glad to help you. Make sure they're going to be enable educators to really make education meaningful for them, so they can deploy what's really important for them. How to connect that? How do we make education real for every single student? Because remember, everything is a cycle, and maybe in the future, every single experience will look like this. So let's help kids find magic every day. What Kathy was saying, right? The goosebumps. Education is really fun, and keep that sense of keep training your brain so you never rest. It's an amazing feeling. Count on us in HP to make sure that we're going to enable you to enable them to build a better future for us. And if we have to do one kid at a time, that's awesome. So thank you guys. Appreciate that.
Thank you.